In Deuteronomy 28 verse 64, Yahweh, the God of the Israelites only, said he would scatter the Israelites as punishment for breaking the covenant, and that they would be among all people of the earth and serve other gods. And in the book of Isaiah chapter 11 verse 11, one of the places the Israelites would be scattered to is Elam, which is India. The so-called East Indians are called Elamites in the scriptures. In 586 BC, the Babylonians came and destroyed the first temple and took the southern kingdom into slavery, as found in 2 Kings 25 verse 8. In 538 BC, when the Jews returned and built the second temple, only 42,360 Israelites returned home to Jerusalem, pursuant to the book of Ezra 2 verse 64. These mostly southern kingdom Jews that didn't return home lived in the 127 provinces of King Xerxes, as found in Esther 3 verse 6. Around 30 AD, the Messiah prophesied in Luke 21 verses 20 through 24 that Jerusalem would be destroyed and that his people, the Israelites, would be led into captivity among all nations. It was fulfilled in 70 AD. All of these major events caused the Israelites to be scattered all across the earth. And one of the places the Israelites scattered to is India. In the book Lost Tribes of Myth, page 341, states that the Malabar or Black Jews arrived in India in 69 AD and the Cochin Jews sometime after 70 AD. Page 342 states that a Cochin census report was found in 1901 that states a Roman ship found an Israelite colony already in Malabar in the 2nd century AD. This adds credence to their story. These Black Jews, as they were called, were given copper plates by the Hindu king at the time as a good gesture of peace, honor, trade benefits, and community rights, equivalent to those of the nobles in that region. It was signed by the Israelites in block Hebrew or the Aramaic square script. A Jewish or small hat traveller named Benjamin of Tudela visited Cochin in 1173 AD and documented his travels in his book, The Itinerary of Rabbi Benjamin Tudela. On page 65 he wrote, "Several thousand Israelites live here. The inhabitants are all black and the Jews also. The latter are good and benevolent. They know the law of Moses and the prophets, and to a small extent the Talmud and Halacha. And it's very important to note, he found no white Jews in India. That's very important to remember in this story." Another traveller, Henry Yule, a geographer, stated in his book, Cathay and Thither, Volume 1, that the Jews in the Malabar Principalities were of the tribe of Manasseh, and they had been there for over 1,000 years. But things began to change for the Jews on the Malabar coast, and it wasn't for the better. In 1452, a papal bull was issued by the Catholic Church of Portugal. Pope Nicholas V decreed that they could now, and I quote, "invade, capture, vanquish and subdue all Saracens who were the Moors and pagans, to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery and take away all their possessions and property," unquote. And thus the stage was now set for Portuguese incursions into the water surrounding India. Please stay tuned for part 2. As we begin part 2, it is essential to examine the notable global occurrences of 1546. Firstly, the Catholic Inquisition continues to be enforced. The papal bull issued by Pope Nicholas V in 1452 has escalated in intensity, particularly with the involvement of Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama, who reached the shores of India in 1498, with the intention of expanding the Indian Ocean slave trade into the area. This endeavour proved successful, as by 1546, Cochin and Goa had become pivotal centres for this trade. Slaves were being extensively traded there and transported to various ports worldwide. Secondly, a new demographic has emerged along the Malabar coast, the Jewish community. It is noteworthy to recall from part 1 that Benjamin of Tudela did not encounter any white Jews in India 400 years prior. However, they are now living alongside the Israelite population. Members of the Jewish community owned slaves upon their arrival, and soon the black Jews would be slaves as well. Let's continue. Initially, the engagements between the Cochin Jews, often referred to as black Jews, and the recently settled Jewish community were characterized by a spirit of friendliness. Historical travel narratives provided by early explorers present insightful viewpoints regarding the dynamics of the relationships between these communities. We shall examine some observations made by early travelers about both groups. In the book, The Travels of Rabbi David Beth Hillel, who traveled to Cochin, noted on page 122 that the black Jews are good people, and most of them are engaged in mechanical employment. There are no agriculturalists among them. The black Jews are much more respectable for moral character and conduct than the white Jews. They are, and this is important to note, they are well acquainted in the Hebrew scriptures, which they readily translate into Malayalam, and as far as circumstances allow them, they walk according to the law. This rabbi goes on to say the white Jews say of the black Jews that they are descendants of numerous slaves who were purchased and converted to Judaism. The black Jews believe themselves to be descendants of the Israelites of the first captivity who were brought to India. This account I am inclined to believe correct. Though called black Jews, they are of somewhat darker complexion than the white Jews, yet they are not the colour of the natives of the country or persons descended from Indian slaves. In Lost Tribes, a Myth, page 540, Alan Godby states, "The white Jews of Cochin are far less moral than the black. They lived on their ethnic pride, their ancestry and heirloom jewellery, and were known to sell their wives or daughters to the Europeans, Parsis or Muslims. As a result, fathers often abandoned their reputed children, knowing them not really their own. They had been known to turn their children over to Christians, to be baptized and reared as Christians. This was done to protect their wealth, no doubt. With regards to worship, the black Jews, having had established synagogues, were kind to them and facilitated communal worship. But the Jewish community, with their money, power, influence in the region, and being at the top of the already established caste system since their arrival, began to instruct black Jews in the tenets of Judaism. Unfortunately, they brought racism with them, even into the synagogue. On page 356 of the book, Letters to Kantavisha, it says, "The blacks have a dark-coloured rabbi who must stand back if a white rabbi enters and must resign to the white rabbi the honour of performing the divine service whenever he enters the synagogue. And if a black rabbi enters a white synagogue, he must be a hearer only." And on page 505, it states that the white Jews eventually put an end to the ministry of the black Jews, refusing them teaching or training in Judaism, and declaring that the black Jews were not real Jews, but merely Gentiles and descendants of slaves. Page 545 states that black Jew families of culture, wealth, and noble rank one year might be captives and sold as slaves by the Jewish merchants the next year. It goes on to say, on page 354, that the black Jews cannot study the scriptures unless they are freed men who have been voluntarily emancipated by their owners, and such freedmen must check with their former masters and kiss the hands of their former owners at the close of Yom Kippur services. And if they die without children, the former owners are their heirs to all their property. The white Jews eventually built their own synagogues and took the copper plates from the black Jews and claimed it was never theirs. The white Jewish people are usurpers where they were once guests, and the black Jews were not originally their slaves. Lost Tribes, a Myth, page 354. A significant aspect often omitted from contemporary history texts, but present in earlier accounts, is the involvement of Jewish merchants in the slave trade. They engaged in the buying and selling of slaves, owned ships and navigational tools, and had established trading networks due to their participation in the slave trades during the Middle Ages, by their own admission. In the book, The Jews in New Spain, Faith Flame and the Inquisition, page 212, tells us that the Jews acted as commercial agents during the Inquisition, and page 135 reveals that they were agents for the slave trade to Spain and Portugal, prior to 1580 and thereafter. Remember Benjamin of Tudela from part 1? He was an agent for the crown. King Alfonso V of Portugal and the Pope sought to convert individuals to Catholicism, offering freedom only to those who converted to their Christian doctrine. But their masters had to give their approval. Now the black Jews found themselves enslaved, akin to their fellow Israelites who were subjected to the transatlantic slave trade, which occurring simultaneously. The Indian Ocean slave trade generated hundreds of millions of dollars under Portuguese control of the Malabar coast. The Dutch took over after the Portuguese and then the British. And like their brethren in the transatlantic slave trade, these Jews were put into captivity and could be shipped from Goa or Cochin to the Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, South Africa, or the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain, and Portugal. The slave traded in British India finally ended in 1861 after much resistance. This is a notice of freedom for 800,000 slaves. Notice what is circled on this poster. It says, "His people shall go free," so they know who you are. The true people of the book. In the mid-1950s, following the establishment of a Jewish state, numerous Cochin Jews departed from India to settle in Israel, under the belief that they were Jewish. Upon arrival, they encountered racism reminiscent of the experiences they faced by white Jews who arrived in India in 1546. Just as black Hispanics and Native Americans in the Americas adopted Christianity, these Jews embraced Judaism. However, it is important to recognize that some of them may actually be of Israelite descent and will return to their authentic heritage, if they are of the elect. Sirach chapter 13 verse 16 says, "All flesh consorteth according to kind, and man will cleave to his like." And today, the dispersed Israelites in India exhibit similarities to their brothers elsewhere, engaging in activities such as rap, basketball, and various religions, including Hinduism and Buddhism and others. However, some individuals will be in the truth when the Messiah returns, as prophesied in Isaiah 11:11. In closing, there are various Israelite communities spread across India, such as the Siddis, who are also known as Afro-Indians. They trace their roots back to the Bantu tribe from West Africa. Among the Bantu, some are Israelites, while others belong to the Hamitic lineage. The Portuguese captured many of them and brought them to India, where they too were sold into slavery. We hope this mini-documentary has been edifying. Thanks for watching. All honor, glory and praise goes to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Ra Kakadash, and double honors to the apostles, elders and bishops of Great Millstone. Until the next time, Shalom.